Thanks for that. Do I have a clicker? Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. It's really exciting to be here and exciting to see you all as I talk to you about switching consumer habits using community principles. So I guess to kick it off, as mentioned, I work for Woolworths, but since being in the United States, I have noticed that Woolworths used to be here, and it's not a company anymore. And I just want to set it in the context that in Australia, it is a grocery chain of stores. It very much is in existence, and it's totally different to what was in the US, and I think in the UK as well. So setting that context, in Australia, Woolworths has about probably more than 1,000 stores nationally. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. About 67% of the population shops at Woolworths. I think it employs about 1% of the population. And that's really important to set that context to understand when we did go down this avenue of community, that corporate structure of where do you really fit in when it's just such a huge behemoth. So today I want to talk about how it happened. So this talk is really about how we ended up building this community called Bunch, and it is a food community, and how this community was able to actually change customer perception about Woolworths branded products, and then finally how it managed to actually survive by integrating into the business. So the first things first, because I do kind of appreciate it's a bit of retail jargon when we talk about private label. So Woolworths has its own label of products. I think I've seen it in Trader Joe's. You've got the products at Trader Joe's are made by Trader Joe's. Woolworths isn't like the whole store is like that. It's got a section that it's got its own kind of group of products. And about 7 years ago, Woolworths said, we want to change these products. Currently, these products are seen as kind of your home brand, no frills, your kind of cheap products. Like, you know what you're getting for. The price is going to be pretty cheap, but quality was never something that anyone associated with the Woolworths products. And they decided, we want to change that. We want to improve all of our product ranges, and that's everything from your your shampoo to your tomatoes to your baby food, across all the ranges. They're like, we're going to improve this. And we're going to focus on quality and sustainability. And so a few years went on, and they were ready to relaunch their products. But I guess there's this existing customer perception of these products, that they're cheap but not good. So how do you get your customers to change their mind? How do you get them to, retry the product and see, oh no, it's actually gotten better? And so I guess the first way was, we should advertise. We should put it up on billboards, let everybody know that we're new and improved. But to be honest, and I think we've seen in a few talks today, no one's really going to trust that. I think everyone's going to say, you're Woolworths, of course you're going to say that your products are new and improved. So that was something that we didn't really want to go down. And at the same time, we saw the rise of social media, peer-to-peer recommendations. You really did see that word of mouth and recommendations, which was much more powerful than any advert that we could ever do. So how do we go about doing that? How do we get people to talk about it? We still have that problem that they haven't retried the product. And so the obvious choice would be sampling. We need to get them to try the product again. And so we looked to traditional in-store sampling. But we thought there's got to be a better way. There has to be more of a digital way that we could do this so that we could track feedback, we could track insights, we could actually track, are they talking to other people about it? And so we thought, okay, what's a digital way that we could try the sampling approach? And that's where originally Bunch was born. So originally Bunch was just an online sampling platform. That's what it was. You signed up for it, you got a product to try. You go in store, you claim that product, you go back home, you try it with your friends and family, you kind of leave a review back online, and we had that feedback, and that was great. It was what we were looking for. But we saw our customers doing something quite different. We saw they were trying to hack the platform almost to talk to one another. Yes, they talked about how, we want to talk to our friends and family, this product's really great, or not so great. Sometimes it wasn't great feedback. But they were trying to share tips and advice with each other about, oh, I tried this too, but this is how I did it. And they were really trying to do it, but the platform wasn't built for that. And that's where we kind of took this approach that Bunch has to be more. So it has to be a community. And we built our own, I guess, community section onto the platform. So you've got recipes and chats and articles, and it's all user-generated content. And now it's one of Australia's largest food forums. So some of the results and benefits that we were seeing from it, the first one I think is a pretty obvious one, product improvements. We were getting some pretty amazing feedback from our customers about our products that we could send back to the food developers. Sometimes they change it and then we'd send it back for resampling, and that was a really great loop that we could get into. But then with the chat section, what we were able to do quite quickly is, for example, when we'd have a supplier doing our chocolate blocks, they were pushing back that they needed to resize the chocolate blocks. It's going to be a bit cheaper for them. No one cares what the size of the chocolate block is. Let's change that size. And we put up a quick chat and we said, well, how would that impact you if we changed the size of a chocolate block? And we were overwhelmed with responses of our customers saying, this is how I currently use it. This is why it's important for this size to be this way when I melt it or when I cook in this way. And it was just so many comments that we were able to then send back to the supplier and push back. At the same time as we're having all these conversations, some of them did go to other social media platforms, and then from there it got picked up by nationwide PR. So we got millions of dollars worth of free PR by nationwide news just kind of going into our members' homes to talk about Bunch, and in essence actually talk about our own products, because that's what Bunch really is. With that, though, came the other, I guess, advantage and disadvantage. By being on nationwide news, we did get a huge wait list then, and a whole bunch of people wanted to join. The site didn't crash, which was really great news, but it did mean that we had this huge wait list. And I guess what community manager doesn't want a huge wait list, but we weren't ready for it. We weren't ready for that kind of scale-up approach, and we wanted to make sure that we were scaling up in the appropriate manner. And then with that, we also didn't want to tarnish our current engagement rates as we were building up, I guess, our ambassador programs and I guess we call them our VIBs. And so we saw really high kind of login rates, repeat sites visits to the site, time spent on the site, and even this picture, it shows a whole bunch of members actually flying across Australia to do a self-meetup. Which is awesome because Australia is a huge country, so that's really cool that they did that. So that was where we wanted to make sure we did scale up with our members and in a way that made sense for them. As I mentioned before, we've got now recipes, articles, kind of chats. So that means hundreds of thousands of user-generated content on the site. And what we did with that is, as I mentioned before, do we advertise? Do we tell everyone we're new and improved? And we chose not to for a period of time. And then when we got to use our customer testimonials and use that instead, obviously with their permission, when we got to use that, we saw really great results, probably around 5 times higher than our usual benchmarks and about 4 times higher than any advert that didn't include our customer voice. So that's really awesome. But what happens when your CEO doesn't see the value in what you're doing? So we're awesome. We know that we're getting all these great benefits for our food developers, for our team, for our objective of getting the message out about our own label product. But it's a huge organization. And the big CEO saw this cost center line and was like, what is this? You know, what is this that's costing me all this money? And so we realized it's time that we needed to prove our worth. And I guess you've got this really positive and powerful community that sits as a separate project. And there's a reason it was a separate project. We wanted to build it in line with what our community members wanted. And we kind of wanted to battle the corporate name. So even, for example, it's not the Woolworths community, it's Bunch. And that's a really important decision, because Woolworths is a huge brand in Australia. So that's going to be really overwhelming if you kind of come in, and that's going to already kind of set the tone for the community. So it was quite a specific reason why we were a separate project, but then that, I guess, came and bit us. And so we decided we needed to look at adding value back to the business. We needed to find ways that people saw us as useful, And the other one is we needed to integrate back into the business. We needed to look at, well, what is the business strategy? What are its priorities? And how do we integrate into that? What do our members or what does our community do that integrates back into that? And so we stayed alive through two means. The first one is data and insights. And I guess data and insights makes a lot of sense. We're sitting on so much customer information, but we weren't feeding it back to the business in any meaningful way. And the business speaks in data. So what we did, we chose to invest in a data visualization tool called Tableau. And Tableau is really awesome because it can pool your data and present it in a way that actually makes sense to people, especially when you're dealing with so much qualitative data of just chats. So we invested into that, and we were able to pool reports for other parts of the business. If you want to do a back-to-school campaign, we can tell you, well, what are members putting in the lunch boxes or considering to put into lunch boxes. You're looking at your next Christmas shelf line, we can tell you what are our members doing around the Christmas period. So that was the first one that we looked into, and we're still working on improving that and integrating more and more throughout the wider business with data and insights. And the second one was ROI. ROI of our program, so developing a payback model, but also ROI in terms of the business strategy. So as I started in the beginning, there was a strategy to improve Woolworths branded products. And we set up this community to get people to talk about these products. Did we succeed? So when we wanted to look into that, we were really fortunate. So to be a Bunch member, you also have to be a loyalty card member, which is that little orange card. And that was awesome because when we wanted to look at our member spend before joining the community and after joining the community, we could tap into this loyalty card. And so what we did is we looked at 12 months of data before our members joined and 12 months of data after they joined, and we saw quite a positive difference. But then on top of that, we saw what was driving that positive difference, and that was their share of basket, of what they're putting in their shopping trolley, of our branded products, where they hadn't before. So here we can prove specifically that shopping behavior had changed through the community membership lifecycle, which was really awesome and added our credibility throughout the business and why I can still stand up on this stage here and not out of a job. But having said all that, the data is incredibly important, and when we went down this path to integrate back into the business, we needed to remember to not lose that community at core. There's still the intangible benefits of what our community is. The products are what kind of brings people to Bunch, but it's definitely the community that gets them to stay. And this is just two quotes, which is hundreds on there of like, yeah, I joined for the products, but it really is that, I guess, the support from the community to try something new, to get back into cooking, the trivia. It's a bit of a go-to morning companion, which is really integral to us. So when we looked at our community strategy, we have a code of conduct, we have our moderation framework, our rules for participation, but we also decided we had to set some really strong community principles, or we sometimes call it internally community culture, that we really hold quite strongly inside. We hold ourselves very accountable to this. So any decisions we make, and the more we integrate into the business, we can still hold to this. And so the first one's about them, not us. So we really have built this community with our members, and we use the analogy of the dinner party. So we're the hosts, we provide the space, we provide the free food, but everything else is completely over to them, and they get to dictate what happens and what's going on, and really that focus is there. The next one is fixing the broken windows, and that really comes from the broken windows theory. If anyone's familiar with it, it's a criminological theory from the 80s and 90s, where it showed that in neighborhoods where there were broken windows and no one was fixing them, it showed that no one cared, there are no consequences, and hence you can just keep breaking more windows. Even people who usually wouldn't, they'd be like, oh, no one cares, let's just give it a shot. But whereas in communities or neighborhoods where someone was fixing the broken windows, it showed someone cared, and it made other people feel safer. And that's something that our community members always tell us, is that they really feel safe in our community. They feel safe to be themselves, and it's their community space, but at the same time, they know that if something happens, we're going to jump in and fix it. Closing the loop and sense of ownership, that's really important when you think about that we're a product community. So we're asking for quite a lot of feedback. Yes, there's a reward to it, but we also need to make sure that we have this trust around what we're doing with that feedback. And we have to have a maturity enough in our business to act on the feedback, positive or negative. And so especially as people outside of our team want to talk to our customers, and that's awesome that they want to come and talk to our community, but we need to kind of also hold them by these principles that you're going to have to close the loop. You're going to have to tell us, what are you going to do with this information or with these insights? We have committed to responding back to the customers of what's going to happen with it. And that ties in quite closely with transparency. It's a two-way relationship. There's a lot of, trust and being shared amongst the community, and we need to be transparent. And honestly, if we're not, they're going to figure it out anyway, and there's no need. So we get it, we're a corporation, but if we're not transparent, we're going to lose a really strong trust that we've created. So I guess with that, wrapping up, kind of talking about, well, why did Woolworths go down this kind of path of building a community? It went down the path just to sample products, and what it ended up with is building a huge food community in Australia. And then we were able to prove how that community actually changed consumer perception of its own label products. And then finally, we did stay alive by integrating into the business, but also really holding ourselves accountable to still community at heart. And that's it. Thank you very much. You guys have been awesome. It's great to be here.